Hello, everyone. Welcome to the next installment of Analytics in Action, the how-to webinar series by Association Analytics. I'm Katrina McAfee. I'm the Senior Marketing Manager here at Association Analytics. Thanks for joining us. We're going to give it just a minute for everyone to get logged on. In the meantime, let us know where you're calling in from in the chat. And then something fun, let us know if you have anything you've maybe recently done that you've not done in, say, a year and a half because of a global pandemic. Thought it might be fun to hear what people are starting to, get back to the norm. Mine is I went to the gym today for the first time, probably in over a year and a half. I'll be honest, I wasn't going that much before the pandemic. What about you, Greg?
I got to see my favorite barber to cut my hair. I hadn't seen her in 18 months. And when I showed up, she remembered me and she even knew exactly what haircut I wanted. I'm feeling good and summery, ready to go.
Nice. What about you, Bill?
Well, I also got my first professional haircut in a year plus, pretty recently. Went out to a restaurant.
Nice.
In the last 2 weeks. Yeah, haven't done that in a long time.
Awesome. Somebody here went to a distillery. That sounds more fun than our stuff.
Anybody done anything big like a concert or a ball game, something like that?
I can't wait to go see a baseball game. I want to go see the Nats play. I'm excited for that.
I am going to my first, let's say, concert this Saturday, but it's just a small show in Gainesville. It's not a huge concert. There may be 50 people there, but that'll be big for me.
All right.
Just a reminder for everyone in the chat, make sure to mark your to panelists and attendees so everybody can see it.
Yep.
If you have any questions relevant to the webinar as we are going, try to remember to put it in the Q&A. That makes sure that we can see it. If you throw it in the chat, we'll try to keep up with it, but sometimes it can get a lot in the chat to keep up with. Also, we are recording this, so we'll be sending the recording out tomorrow, most likely tomorrow. So you can be on the lookout for that.
Fun story. Go watch our webinars from last year around this time when all of our haircuts just get longer and longer.
I went on vacation to the beach. That's all fun.
I can't wait to see the beach again.
Yeah. All right, we are at 3:03, so we are going to get started. Like I said, you're here for Analytics in Action. Today's topic is one that we all love to hate, how to overcome your fear of dirty data. So, we all have dirty data, can't escape it, but Greg and Bill here are going to help us overcome that fear. Before I make formal introductions for them, just wanted to let everyone know about our next session. That'll be July 14th at 3 p.m. And during that session, we're going to talk about how to use data to create relevant content. So there's, lots of good stuff behind that. You can look at your data, determine that you're giving your members what they want and need. All right, on to introductions. Today we have Bill Conforti. He's the SVP of Strategy and Solutions for Association Analytics. He's been in the industry for over 20 years, so data and software expert. And then we have Greg Pollock. He's our VP of Sales. He has been working for or with associations for, I think, 15 plus years now. So we got another expert in the area. So you guys are in good hands. I'm going to turn it over to Greg to get started.
Awesome. Thanks, Katrina. So as you know from attending our webinar series, we love your feedback that you've been giving us. And a couple people commented, this is very product heavy. We want to just talk about stuff that we need to know about data and analytics that's not related to the product. So today we're going to be talking about a big topic that we hear all the time is dirty data. You've also told us you really enjoy the poll questions, hearing from other attendees what their thoughts are. So we've included some great poll questions in. We're going to kind of do an analytics couch today. I'm going to be the panicked executive who has lots of data questions who I don't understand. Bill, as always, will be the voice of reason, helping bring me back to reality. What is the actual situation I'm dealing with? What are the tactics and strategies I can implement? We're going to give you some concrete things you can do right now. Some people said, I can't do this without acumen. We're going to give you things you can do today without any product or service or hiring anybody. And then obviously we're going to summarize with some key takeaways. What should we do next? As always, we are Association Analytics. If you're not familiar with us yet, we help associations like yours manage their data. We focus on everything from integrating all of your data, helping you dedupe and clean up your data, creating data quality dashboards, and then most importantly, leveraging that data in our visualization tool Acumen. You've seen some of these boxes before, so we'll go on to the next thing.
Okay, so let's just get a couple of quick definitions out of the way. Just some of the terms that we'll be using throughout the rest of the talk today. So first of all, data quality. So what is that? So data quality is kind of like a point in time metric. So right now, is your data complete? Is it accurate? And is it consistent? So data integrity is related to quality, but it adds in this idea of time and across systems, right? So how well does the accuracy, validity, consistency, et cetera, of the data, how well is that maintained across your organization between different systems and tools, different departments? How do you maintain that quality if your data is, say, updated every day, or if it's being transferred, right, or integrated between multiple systems? You know, completeness is really just what it sounds like. You know, how complete is your data? So sometimes we're talking about completeness of a particular field. So you might see that we have 100% completeness in our email address field, for example, right? Or you might be talking about completeness of your overall profiles, in which case you might say something like, well, 80% of our member profiles are complete or substantially complete, according to our definitions. So data governance and data management, those are two different but closely related terms. So data governance is concerned with strategic decisions around data, right? So it's principles and practices, and it's how you enforce your rules around how you manage your data. So it's like the enforcement and the theory part of data management. So we're not going to talk a lot about governance today. We'll cover that in another topic, but there are some things that are part of overall governance that we will sort of mention, and those are more like data management. So management is more like the logistics and the tactics, right? How do we control the quality? What are some of the tools that we can use to do that? All right, so we're going to get into a few poll questions now.
Awesome. So our first poll question, pretty simple answer here, yes or no. Are duplicate records a problem for your association? I think there's a couple things in here. Duplicate records, we all know what that is. Is this a problem for your association? Interesting way we've worded that.
Can you define problem?
I think we're going to get into the definition of problem in a few minutes here, so I don't want to give too much away, but are they a problem for your association? And I'll tell you, we have duplicate records. Earlier today, somebody signed up for the webinar with a different email address than they had in my database. That created a duplicate. I had to merge them together. This is something I do on a regular basis.
All right, let's go ahead and check out the answers.
Yes, duplicate 86% of people. Love it.
All right.
All right, so then let's get into the second question here. Everybody says it's a problem. Let's sort of zoom in on that problem. What percentage of your member records are duplicates? Is it 0 to 5% of your records are duplicates? 6 to 10%, more than 10% of your records out there are duplicates, or you don't know? What percent of your records are duplicates? And I think this might change based on the size of your organization or the type of member you have.
Somebody's messing up to be in the duplicate. That's great. That's great. All right, let's see the answers.
Don't know. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
4 or 5, 0 to 5. Okay.
So now that's interesting, right? So now most of us know for certain that it's a big problem, but we don't know how many there are. So that's actually kind of what we expected. That's what we see, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. Okay. So we had 2 polls. So you participated a little bit already. We have one more thing we're going to ask you to participate in right now. And so we're talking about member demographics specifically, right? So there's a lot of different fields that you might look at completeness for, but for demographics, what percentage completeness should associations target?
So you have to answer this in the chat. There's no.
Oh, sorry.
No,
yeah,
that's right. So what percentage do you think you should target for? And let's define a demographic. So we want to know a preference. When you fill something out, you check the box. What percentage of completeness do we have? It depends on the field is a real good answer. So let's say email address, that's a really important field. We know we need that. Let's pick something a little less important. Let's pick topics of interest. I don't necessarily have everybody's topics of interest. What percent completeness is a good number to have? 50%? Okay. Yeah. Throw out some answers. I want to know what you're thinking. 75% completeness, 95%? Okay.
Cool. Much as we can get.
Yeah.
All right. Yes, I think most, the fact that we had such a range and people are saying depends on the field, I think as much as we can get, I think all of those are in their own way, they're legitimate answers, right? So first of all, it definitely does depend, right? I mean, if you're talking about the email address or something like that, then you're going to try to be very close to 100%. But if it's something that is, it's not as important for your analysis or it's harder to get, for some reason, then you might have, closer to 50%. But in terms of targeting, another point that I want to make is it really depends on where you're at right now. Meaning that if you really think 90% is ideal, but you're at 55% now, you need to be a little bit more realistic about setting your targets, right? So this is something that's going to be incremental improvement. And so it's going to be something that you're doing over time, right? But all of those answers are quite valid in my view. So let's jump over to the couch here. So Greg is going to be our patient.
Bill, I got problems with my data quality, and let me tell you what I have. I talk to Mark at the lunch counter every day. Mark's in member services, and all I hear Mark complaining about is duplicates. He tells me that on a daily basis, he's merging duplicate records together. We have to have a tremendous amount of duplicates because whenever I talk to Mark, he seems frustrated about these duplicates. Let me tell you about Mary. Mary is over in marketing, and every time we go to pull a list and promote an event or upcoming product we have, she's always complaining about the detailed list she wants. She goes to Liam over in IT, and Liam pulls these lists for her. But I constantly hear from Liam that he's getting all these requests for lists on data we don't have. Mary's telling me that she can't send the emails out because she's not getting the list from Liam. It seems like we don't have enough data to be able to pull this together. And then furthermore, like my team, the executive team, whenever I'm preparing for our board of directors meeting, it takes us like 2 or 3 weeks to just pull all the, we got to shut down, lock the doors for 2 or 3 weeks because everybody's sending me Excel spreadsheets. The Excel spreadsheets are never right. So I have to go in and like change stuff myself based on what I think's going on. And then we've got to get all that into PowerPoint. Fred's always late with his Excel spreadsheet. So we don't have our event data to the last minute. I got lots of problems with my data, Bill. I don't even know how we run this business, to be honest.
Oh, lots of problems. Okay. So Greg, your pretend name is also Greg, right? So we're going with that.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's try to drill into that a little bit, right? I mean, so you talked about board meetings. You talked about creating lists and curating those lists. And so, give me something specific that data quality is really preventing you from doing.
When we're pulling lists for like our board meeting, like number of members we have, changes of members over time, those are really hard to get accurate. And I don't know if I even trust them. I tell the board those are the numbers, but I don't know.
Yeah. So I think really here, this is an example of, and we kind of saw this in the poll, which is the scope of the problem. It seems really big, but in reality, it really doesn't prevent you from doing the things that you need to do. Like, for example, your email list might not be perfect, and you certainly should, be something. It should certainly be something that you try to improve over time. But in the end, if you have a couple of duplicates on your webinar registration list, or even on your event registration list, or if I email a certain member twice, maybe once to his current email address and one to one that doesn't check anymore, I don't know if that's if that's really such a big deal in the grand scheme of things. So did you successfully, you held your event successfully, right?
Yeah, we had a hybrid event last year. It was our biggest event we've ever had.
Yeah, and you were able to email your members, right? Probably a few too many times, but you were able to do that successfully.
We promoted the heck out of the event, man. We sent emails to everybody about it. Yeah.
And what about money? Did you raise any money last year? Pandemic and all.
We did a big
probably
capital
tough.
drive. Yeah, we did a big capital drive, and we were able to find donors left and right.
Okay. Really, so in case it's not clear, really the point is that data quality is a convenient, I hesitate to use the word excuse, but it's an obstacle that we kind of put in front of ourselves or in our organizations that prevents us from moving forward with things that we want to do, other data initiatives, changing our AMS, changing other source systems. And when you really kind of do some root cause analysis and try to get down to the real things that it's preventing you from doing, I think in most cases it's really not as big as you think. So what you can do here is acknowledge that, yeah, it might seem like it's something that's big and hairy, but if you prioritize how you're going to tackle things, that you can kind of break it up into bite-sized pieces, right? If you're looking at data quality tasks that you want to tackle or data sets that you want to work on, this is getting into governance a bit. You want to look at strategic alignment. What are the things that most align with key metrics or key performance indicators that track progress to our strategic objectives? Which things generate revenue, right? So obviously events and membership related things would probably be close to the top of the list. I suggest low hanging fruit as well. So if there's one set of data that you have a lot of and it's pretty close, right? And that might be something that you can get a kind of a quick win. And so quick wins apply to pretty much all aspects of business, but I think data quality is also a good example. And then maybe you also do it by department, right? Maybe you have a lot of good data people in your marketing department, so that might make the most sense to start there. And it's tighten up your communications and so forth. All right, let's take a look at another one.
I want to tell a great story about that real quick, Bill. Okay. Reggie Henry from ASAE was on one of our webinars last year, and he talked about data prioritization. And he said, we wanted to do an engagement scoring project, but we realized that we have dirty data, we're missing data, we have incomplete data. And he said, if I started by looking at all the data and fixing everything, we track over 100 different things on our members. That'd take forever. But when we did the engagement scoring project, we realized there's probably like 10 things we really care about. And we prioritize fixing those things. So instead of, I'm a procrastinator. If there's 100 things I have to do, I'm never going to tackle the first one. But if we have 10 things we have to clean up and get better at collecting, what an easy task to be able to do. Don't sweat the details on the little things. If it doesn't matter for your strategic priorities and it's dirty, okay, that's just life. So here's the next problem. I run into this problem on a regular basis is I spend time fixing data. I have to merge things. I have to update things. Marketing bought a list and just duplicated all these records I've got to go clean up. Somebody signed up for the webinar with their Gmail account. They don't want to get promotions to their Gmail account. I got to go in and fix that. We've got just things categorized wrong. Like that's not a medical association. That's a trade association. Like I got to go in and fix all this stuff in my database all the time. I pull my hair out thinking about all the time I spend fixing data. Can I make all that go away?
So Greg, let me ask you, how much time do you think you really spend on fixing your data?
If I had to boil it down, it's probably something like an hour a week, maybe 2 hours every other week.
Okay, so an hour a week. So would you say you do that like on Thursday afternoons at 4 p.m., 4 to 5 p.m., something like that?
Part of my challenge is it's unscheduled, just kind of pops up in my day. So it feels like it's always annoying. It feels like I'm trying to do something else. And then this data quality issue pops up.
Yeah, so so this one is an easy one, right? So we get this objection a lot. We get this complaint a lot. And I think there's really two key things. One is it seems like you spend a lot more time on it than you actually do. And, pardon me for any of the IT people on the call that, have, good records of how long they actually spend, but the point is that you don't really plan to spend any time in most organizations, right? Some do. But if you haven't planned for it, if you haven't allocated and budgeted time for it, then any time you spend on it is taking you away from something that you did have planned. And it seems like it's a lot bigger deal. And the second and maybe more important thing I would say is that it's normal, right? Your data is an asset, and it's quite normal and expected that you spend time to maintain it, and you're going to see a big return on that investment. So it's like the problem is maybe a little bit bigger than you imagine, but also, it's something that you have to kind of live with. So here we're talking about planning for your data quality. You have to allocate resources to that. Again, it's a governance thing, but you have to assign data owners. So every data source and every data set really should have someone that's responsible for maintaining its quality. On the right there is an example of a data quality dashboard. So if you measure your progress on your quality, on your completeness, on the recency of updates and things like that, that kind of brings it top of mind and makes sure that it's going to get addressed. And then it's a process of continuous improvement. So you need to have some patience with it. Excuse me, it's not something that's going to change overnight.
Bill, when COVID happened, I got a couple calls from like the government, and they asked me about data on my members, and I was like, I don't have that data. It's not easily at my fingertips. I've got to go get that data. I feel like every time I'm asked a question about my data, I don't easily have it. It's dirty and I need to clean it up. Like this, it seems like a big challenge to me.
Yeah. So yeah, a lot of people feel that way, Greg, but the good news is the challenge is not as big as it seems. The problem is not as bad as it seems. I think we saw a little bit of evidence of that already in our poll questions. We talked through some of those issues here, but I want to ask a question of the audience, which is, this is something that you hear sometimes. Is bad data better than no data?
Bad data better than no data? Yes or no, audience? What do you think? Is bad data better than no? Depends on how bad it is. Okay. Depends on the field.
Avoid both.
Avoid both. Yep.
No data is the
Depends
worst.
on the category of data. No data is bad data.
Yes, you can clean it up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So
the starting
no data
point.
is
I like that. Yeah.
Yes, I think for me, maybe the crux of it is it depends on how bad, and it depends on which data. So those are kind of the first two things that we saw come in. But if I had to choose one, I would say bad data is better than no data. At least in our context, right? Because we're not talking about data that's completely misleading or that's like orders of magnitudes off. A couple of decimal places in some financial context, right, can wildly skew things, for example. But usually we're talking about data that's incomplete, or that it's not entirely current, or maybe the sample size is a little bit too small for the decision that we're trying to make. But and there's some truth to garbage in, garbage out, and all that. I know some people believe strongly in that. You can't blindly sort of rely on absolute accuracy of an unknown data set. But for most cases, again, we're dealing with data that's it's incomplete, or it's not entirely current, or we lost some integrity, between systems. And it's my view, and our view as a company, that in most cases you're going to be better off to move forward with whatever decisions or whatever initiatives that you have in mind based on data which might not be perfect, right? And so that leads us to our next point, which is kind of start with what you have, right? It's better than nothing, right? And so the first thing you have to do is there's something called negativity bias, which basically means you kind of remember and emphasize all the bad stuff while you downplay all the positive, right? So I think Greg has a story about negativity bias in our data that he's told us a few times.
Yeah, so this is true. I'm the primary data steward of our data. So I clean up all the data on you all. When you come to our webinars, I clean that up. I merge all that data together. And I was frustrated because I was spending time doing this every week. I got a tool for data duplication. I ran the tool, and it pulled out of the thousands and thousands of contacts and accounts we have. I remember like 20 or 30 that were really duplicates. The problem was I was seeing them, and I was seeing them on a regular basis. I imagined this tremendous amount of duplicates and dirty data out there in the world. And when I went through and scanned it all, it wasn't that bad. The problem I saw was I would see it on a reoccurring basis. So I assumed there was this huge dark monster on the other side of the wall that I wasn't seeing. But what was actually happening is we were doing stuff. We were collecting data, and it was introducing duplicates. And I hadn't scheduled that hour a week to just go through and run the process and scan it. I do it now, and it's just a handful of accounts. I got my handle on it. I know exactly how to run the scan tool. I know how to find what I'm looking for. I know how to merge it. And I know there are certain inflection points. I know when we get back from that trade show, we're going to get a big list of people. There are going to be duplicates in there. I should just budget time for that. I thought it was this huge problem, but when I actually shined a light on it, it wasn't that bad.
Good. Thanks, Greg. Yeah, so set thresholds, right? So we talked about that. That was kind of the point of that question earlier. So how clean is clean enough, right? It depends on the purpose. It depends on the data, right? If you're a trade and you're missing your billing contact, right, that's a big deal, right? You need 100% on that. You don't need to know my birth date or my favorite color. That's really not going to that's not going to prevent you from moving forward with any real decisions. Use visualizations, right? So you have those data quality, dashboards or some kind of visualizations that help you see where you need attention, right? So it's a key analysis that you do all the time. So you create a visualization for it, but you always see this giant bar that says blank or says null, right? That's something that's going to get attention, right? So use those visualizations. Think in the long term, right? That just means be patient, right? It's not, this is like more of a lifestyle change than a fad diet sort of a thing when it comes to data quality. And start with what you have, right? It's better to move forward with that imperfect data than it is to wait for things to be perfect, because we all know that will never happen. So the point is, you don't need all the data, or maybe even most of the data in some cases, to get some insight or to get started. And so we're going to go through a quick exercise to prove that, right? So what is pictured here? Just jump in the chat, see if anybody can guess what we're looking at here. Right, we have some colors, but that's about it. We can't really determine any real shapes. Nothing, obviously it's quite blurry, so nothing is clear. Abstract art. A bird. April says it's a bird.
This is no data. I don't even have any data on what's going on here. I just have to sort of guess.
All right, and so what if we had, say, 10% of the data? What could we determine from that?
I've got data now. I've got the wrong data. Like, this data isn't meaningful data to answer the question I'm trying to get at. This isn't business critical data. I don't need to know my member's favorite color. I don't need them to log in and fill out everything in their profile, because it's not critical to my business needs. It doesn't answer the question I'm trying to get to. What is this?
Yeah. And so what if I took that same 10%, but what if I really concentrated, I prioritized, and I took a look at my business questions, and I said, well, I want to focus on the right 10%, right? What if I take a different 10%? How about now? Right? We take this 10%. What are we looking at? Plants. Right? Okay. And then, yeah, it's a monkey, orangutan, right? And so now if we then
10%, if you were to go get more data, if you were to say, hey, in this picture, we want to unscramble a little bit more of this, you could focus on what next piece of data you want to unscramble to tell the full story of the picture. I don't need all of my data to be clear to have a really good understanding of what's going on in this picture.
A board member. That's great. All right. Yeah, great point, Greg. All right. So the point is, get started with what you have. It doesn't have to be perfect. And so once we get to this point, we pretty much know what we're looking at, right? We don't even necessarily need the rest of the data, although it's nice to have, right? Okay, so we want to end things up with discussion of some things that you can do to get started. And so first thing is collection, right? So we talked about in some cases you just don't have the data that you want. So we want to focus on collection, right? So you want to be consistent, you want to be deliberate, right? You want to balance that need for data with not basically annoying people, right? I mean, not asking for too much, and you want to be creative too. What's a good example of how we can be creative with our data collection, Greg?
Love it. So this is one of my favorite examples recently. I was at ASE Tech, and we were at one of the keynote sessions, and the keynote speaker built up this profile, a persona. He's an expert. He understands business, and he answers questions all the time. And then he said, here's my phone number. Text me if you have any questions. He said, if you text me, I'll respond back to you with answers to your questions. And he said, if you text me, I'll give you a coupon to buy my book at a discount. And it blew my mind, because I not only saw what he was doing, but I really understood what he was doing. He was harvesting data from everybody at the show. Everybody sitting in that room took out their smartphone and texted him their phone number. He just got all this data on the people he was hoping to attract. Now imagine the flip side of that. Imagine you walk into the keynote session and they hand you a piece of paper and they say, write down your name and phone number on here. We're going to text you promotions for this speaker's upcoming event. Nobody's going to fill that out, right? So how do we be creative and acquire the data we need in a reasonable manner? Now imagine you have an upcoming event and you want to promote it via text. You got everybody's number. Imagine you have an upcoming renewal cycle and you want to get a hold of those members who haven't renewed yet. You got their phone number. You can literally text them. And we didn't have to ask them to fill out their profile. We didn't have to go through this painful exercise of persuading people. I think Corinne said it earlier, you know, if you force people to answer questions, you'll get bad answers, right? We can be creative and come up with better ways to collect data from people. I'll give you another example is timeliness of data. If you're familiar with online communities, there's a really great automation rule called discussion author with no photo. And this is perfect. Hey, Bill, I noticed you posted in our community yesterday, but you don't yet have a photo. Did you know that if you have a profile photo, you're more likely to get an answer to your question? And Bill goes, oh, I should upload a photo. Not because it benefits us, the association, because it benefits Bill personally, right? So here's a really timely approach to asking for data. And the way we position that request is it benefits you. Both of these requests benefited the person providing the data. It didn't benefit us. If you text me, I'll answer your question. If you upload your photo, you'll get a better response rate to your question. These conversion rates are significantly higher than your standard call to action because they were timely, they were creative, and they weren't asking people to update a million fields. Just tell us that one thing that we need to know, and here's why you should tell it to us.
All right, cool. So the next few slides are data governance type things. You don't need a tool for this. But these are things that any association can do kind of starting right now. So I'm going to go through these fast. So Katrina, if you have it handy, if you could put the link into our data governance guide, that might be helpful for this as well. But these are things that anybody can do. So first of all, data source inventory, right? What is that? It's an inventory, right? It's a list of all your data, all your systems. And in the box here, these are some of the things that you should keep track of, right? The name of the system, of course, the vendor, department, the owner, and the purpose are probably the two most important things here. But then also where is it located and any integrations or single sign-on type integrations with other tools. So that's typically what you find. But the most important thing is to have that inventory. So glossary. So we talk a lot about this. The intent of the glossary is to make sure that we're all on the same page with our definitions. It looks something like this, right? So we have our terms, we have our definitions. We might have other things that talked about when that term was created and when it was approved and things like that. So our data dictionary is about the technical information related to the item. So this is the usage, the business rules, the format of that type of data. Maybe you add things about stewardship or ownership assignments at some point to this as well. So the data dictionary is more detailed and more technical than your inventory. And then lastly, there's the data catalog. So this one is done after the glossary and the data dictionary. It's more advanced, right? This is like what data is available, where it's stored, who uses it. It helps people find what they need, right? This might even be done with a tool. It might have search functionality, and it references information that's already in the data dictionary. It might have links to some of the data sets and things like that. So all of those, that was like the 30-second version of all that. Those things are detailed in our ultimate guide, which is the link is in the chat.
Question, Bill. In reality, and maybe the team members the attendees who've done this can tell us, I spend time building these things. Is anybody ever going to look at this stuff? Is this just an exercise in me pulling this all together, or is someone going to go, let me pull out the data catalog and tell you what that means? What's reality look like for me here?
Yeah, it's a great question. So it has to be connected to things that they use for their job, right? So if it's just an academic exercise, which is like, hey, look, we really need governance, then maybe no. Maybe the answer to that is no, being honest about it. But if you have a if you have a reporting tool, right? Or if you have an analytics tool, or if you have a data warehouse, right? You have reports that you're looking at and you need context. And I have a list of all the definitions of all the business terms, definitely going to use that. If I can click into a link and go straight to that, from the place I need it, I'm going to use that, right? If I'm a new employee and I want to find out, where certain data is held, and there's a catalog that tells me exactly where that is, and I don't have to bother all of my new colleagues, chasing down information all the time. That's something that I'm definitely going to use. So, so the key is to balance, how detailed it is, right? You want to do as little work as possible for the most benefit as possible, right? And so these three artifacts, lightweight framework type versions of these three artifacts, are probably the best use of time to really get started with, basic governance and solidifying some of your approaches to data quality.
I think, going back to our challenges our executive there had, some of these exercises are easily addressing those, right? If I don't know what data we have or don't have, my data catalog helps me figure that out. If I feel like we're spending too much time cleaning up data, the process we put in place to do it tells me, hey, I should be spending an hour or so doing this. And then if we think about our prioritization, our critical business issues, I really didn't have any critical business issues. I felt like I did. I thought they were affecting me and they were our biggest problem. But it turns out we still had events and we still had renewals and the world hadn't ended yet. So it seems like it was a big problem to me. But once we sort of put it in context and put light around it and really started to define it and document it, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was it?
Agreed. Corinne has a good point here, which is that it's also useful for third parties, right? So when you go to replace that system, or when you go to develop a new integration, then having documentation on where all the data lives and how it's all connected is going to be critical. You'll have to figure that out eventually. And if you do it on an ongoing basis, instead of just kind of like on individual, every time you want to change a system, you'll be much better off. All right. Cool. So we hit a lot of our key takeaways there. So we're at about 37. So let's go to our next session.
Wait, I can't let you go on, Bill. I'm sorry. This is my favorite part, where I ask unscripted questions you're not ready for.
Oh, awesome. Let's do it.
We ask our audience a couple things. I want to ask you and put you to task for an answer. What percentage of duplicate records is expected? Like if I just randomly grabbed an association out of the blue, we'll make it a professional association. We got thousands and thousands of members. What percentage should I anticipate being duplicates? And that's just life.
Yeah, great question. And so it wasn't scripted. However, I did, because we were asking the audience this question, I did informal poll of some of our AMS and data experts internally. And the answers, and this is about what I was expecting, the answers are very low. So for the average, for the typical association, it's going to be somewhere in the 2% range, 2 to 5%, something like that. I had a lot of people say 1%, to be honest, but then we had a couple of outliers that were much higher, in the 15 to 20% range. So, I mean, it definitely depends on on your AMS, right? Some AMSs have better deduplication tools than others. Depends on the size of your staff and the amount of time you spend on all your processes and all of that, of course. But I think just going by the buckets that we laid out in our choices, I think the vast majority would be in the 0 to 5, or certainly in the under 10% range.
All right, next question to put you on the spot. We're doing a big diversity and inclusion project. I've captured gender on my update form, but I've only recently added. So I have gender for some people, I don't have it for other people. What level of data do I need to have to tell my board what our breakdown is? Is it 10% is enough to like assume that's a large enough sample size? Is it I need 90% to get an answer? What do I need to be for a demographic like diversity to give an answer?
Oof. That's a good question. I'd probably go to our if I wanted a like mathematical answer on how many we needed for it to be significant and all that, I'd go to our data scientists on that. However, if for purposes of measuring progress, I think this is more what we'd call a directional insight, right? Than something that's definite. So I don't necessarily need to know the exact % improvement that we have in different demographics, but I do need to know, are we trending in the right direction, year over year? So to get started with something like that, just off the top of my head, I'd say if we had 40 to 50%, and then we can obviously look to improve that, but that would be enough to give us a sense directionally of if we're heading the right direction or not.
Awesome. I think I learned a statistics class, if you put your straw in a jug and you don't know what's in it, but you drink out of it and it tastes like milk, there's a good chance there's milk in there. I didn't sample the whole thing, but that population I sampled was milk. I've got a good shot at guessing that it's all milk.
Yeah. All right. I think I might use that at some point. I like it.
All right. What's up next? What are we doing in 2 weeks from now?
All right. So, yeah, any other questions? We got to, as we wrap up here, feel free to drop those in the chat. We'll try to get to those. So we have another session coming up. We're going to talk about creating relevant content, right? Like using all of the engagement and unstructured data that you have in different places to create content, for your members. We'll talk a lot about event-related content, but expand that to other things that you do, publications, blogs, things like that as well. And we'll do that mid-July, coming up on July 14th. So really hope everybody can, those of you that are not on vacation, going to the beach for the first time in a year. So if you're doing that, then definitely do not join us. But if you're in the office, I'd like to see you, for that session. And if you have a second to complete literally a 1-minute survey at the end of this, we do pay attention to those, and your feedback will be reflected in future sessions. So thank you very much for joining, and hope to see you again soon.
Thanks, everybody. Bill, fantastic. I love doing these as always. Love putting you on the spot at the end. That's my favorite part. Audience, thank you so much for participating. These wouldn't happen without you. Thank you so much for being here and chatting with us in the chat. Thanks for taking our survey. We've got 3 weeks to prepare for this next one, so we're going to make it really, really good for you. Looking forward to seeing you there.
Take care, guys.